recording? Okay. All right, censoring Sufis for their claims of piety. SubhanAllah, one thing that's amazing to see in this, so we don't see a lot of like attacks on misbehavior. It's a lot of it is claiming certain piety, self-righteousness attributes, right? This is quite interesting to see because the diseases of the soul are worse than the disease of the body. The diseases of arrogance and pride and self-piety, self-righteousness are worse than the diseases of, committing sins. So they focus a lot on, if you notice, diseases of the heart. Abdul Aziz al-Baghdadi said, I used to read Sufi stories. So one day I climbed over the roof and heard a voice saying, he protects the righteous. Okay. So I jumped over the roof and found myself suspended in the air. This is impossible. In addition, throwing oneself from the roof is a sin, and believing that Allah protects someone while committing a sin is false. Right, so these stories are ridiculous. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not throw yourself into destruction. Okay, or do not kill yourself. So a person cannot obey Allah by doing an act of committing suicide or doing something like that. And this is where some questions might come into, such as like if a person does certain, behavior that puts them in danger, is that an act of bravery, or is that an act of, can it be, concerned as like, what is it, right? So of course it's different. And let's say, for example, if you train, you want to like do like skydiving or something. Some people have said that skydiving is like haram, right? Because you're putting your life in danger. But not really, because it's like, it's like you could say that about driving. There is a chance with driving that you're gonna die, that you're going to end up in a car crash. Same with the plane. Right? If you go on a plane, there's a big chance that you might end up crashing. So you cannot say because, okay, now, I go on a plane, therefore I have to, and it's like a sin because there's a good chance, and definitely if a plane crashes that you're dead. Very, pretty much 100%. You fall from 30,000 feet. Yeah, it's definitely, different than crashing with a car. Yet we found more, statistically speaking, there's more car crashes that cause deaths than plane crashes, isn't it? So then, technically, you could say that being in the car is haram because you put your life in danger. So it's not like that. It's not putting your life in danger. But if you have a parachute, obviously. But if you jump off a building, then yeah, that is haram. If you do like these parkour people did, I see the other day a video, subhanAllah, this guy was jumping on the buildings. No safety, nothing, just, and he fell and he caught this electric cable, subhanAllah, and he caught himself. If not, he would have fallen like 30 stories, definitely would have died. But him doing that is haram, actually. Now going to a airplane or a car, it's not haram. Even though there's a risk of death, of course. There's a risk of death if you're on a horse. There's a risk of death anytime. All right, so, but if you you put yourself in that position where you're jumping with no harness, then definitely this is something that is haram, 100%. Okay, now let's go down. Okay, many people have infiltrated Sufis and imitated them. They're excessive in claiming high levels of holiness, which made lay people follow them using lies and deception. This you could connect today to some of the people who are still around in the Muslim Ummah who claim, they behave very pious and they have a lot of followers, and people give them a lot of money and so on. And also, I think it's even more prevalent in the Christian. You have these evangelicals who are flying around in private jets for their church, and people are donating so much money to them, and they are abusing people with their claims of God speaking to them and prophethood, right? You have a lot of those mega churches, like literally America is like, it's a ground for that. People like are willing to do anything. They're fanatics, And these people are using that. There's so many who claim to be like sent from God, astaghfirullah. So this is nothing new, and it's been around for a while, right? And that's how it is. Now, Al-Hallaj used to bury food in certain places of the desert, and then he would invite friends to take a walk around the same area. He used to make previous arrangements with the one for the friends to ask him for the same type of food that he had hidden. Then Al-Hallaj would pray 2 units and then dig up the food. And when Al-Hallaj was brought to be executed, he said to his friends, "Do not worry about all of this. I'll return to you after 30 days. SubhanAllah. Imagine that. And that he will return after 30 days. Even on his death, he's saying this crazy stuff. The belief system of Hallaj was bad. I mentioned some aspects of his belief system in the beginning of the book and how he was ordered to be executed by the scholars of his time. And indeed, some people would execute. Why? The only time you would execute someone is if he committed kufr, apostasy, right? And indeed they did. There's a lot of apostates, and indeed they did. So later Sufis used to apply grease to their skin, and they would sit in the furnace pretending for this to be a miracle. Yani, subhanallah, right? Like trying to be like Ibrahim alayhi salam. And obviously, they play with religion. There's all kinds of tricks that people do. And till today, this thing happens with magicians and all kinds of tricksters who claim to have miracles, right? Remember, the rule is that there is no miracle that we follow, even if someone has a miracle, except if we see how they follow. If we see how they follow Allah and His Messenger. Okay, that's it. He can fly. If he doesn't follow Allah and His Messenger, we don't follow them. He can have all kind of karamas and miracles, but if he does not follow Allah and His Messenger, we do not follow them. Okay, it's simple rule. He can come. That's why, to protect ourselves from the Dajjal, because the Dajjal is going to have all these different miracles, right? But we will know how to fight it, because we will not believe things that he will say that go against Allah. Okay? Now, let's go down. Lay people, the devil's deception of lay people, right? So now, not the Sufis, not the scholars, but the lay folks. And indeed, there's a lot of those. Majority of people are lay people. We have to understand they are lay people. And of course, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The ulama usually should be the ones who have the most taqwa. Okay, the ulama have the most taqwa. But the lay people are going to be the ones who are attacked the most. So, Iblis whispers to the lay person to contemplate Allah's nature. I think today or yesterday I had a meeting with one sister who was on the verge of kufr, irtad. And I mean, she is, I guess. She is a kafira, even though she's considering herself to an extent a Muslim. But she denies or doubts the existence of Allah. When you doubt the existence of Allah, it's not like doubting the validity of hadith, for example. Okay, even though that can cause a lot of problems. But let's say a person might doubt the validity of the hadith or something like that. It's not the same as doubting the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's kufr. So, but it's the same thing. It's like, her argument was, how can I know? Like, there's no evidence to prove, or enough evidence to prove that God exists. And I said to her, of course, there's lots of evidence, and it's all over around us. It's actually by observation. You don't even need a scientific evidence that God exists. That's before we even go into whether, Islam and so on. We're talking about the existence of God, right? So, yeah, it was interesting to have this discussion with her. She's genuine. She's been having some serious waswasa, of course, things that she's been going through, and it has some origins based on certain things in life. But the lay people, because they don't have the knowledge of the Quran, they are going to sometimes question the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it begins to have doubt. And the Prophet says, Shaitan comes to one of you and says, who created so-and-so? They will say, who created your Lord after? So when such a question comes, one has to seek refuge in Allah and give up such thoughts. You have to just ignore it. And that's why I say to people that when it comes to like OCD and like intrusive thoughts, you have to ignore it. You have to not allow your brain to engage and to let these thoughts grow. Right? You have to really just let it be. Just let it go. Right? Don't try to explain it, because when you try to explain it too much, you just get caught into this just circle of having to confirm and having to confirm, to rationalize these thoughts. Okay. So intrusive thoughts are very dangerous, because you're going to start developing this compulsion that is very ritualistic to be able to explain certain thoughts that you're stuck upon. Just let the thoughts go. Just let it be. Who cares? Right? Now, let's go down. So he has to give, as the Prophet said, give up such thoughts. Okay? Because people don't understand and they do not study. Person who studies, wallahi, you will see like how many people actually like from the ulama have left Islam. There's very few cases that you can say that an actual alim, an actual scholar has left Islam. Right? Very, very. I know of one case only. One case in Saudi Arabia. He was the student of Sheikh Gabriel. And then, I don't know, he migrated somewhere to like England or something. And he was a Catholic. He became like an apostate, an atheist. And he would say that's because studying Islam he became like that. He was just a person following his desires. His arguments were not even something that, was later on, let's say, he became some big da'i against Islam. He just kind of, I think, settled into his sins, and that's it. God knows what happened to him. Right? Other than that, you find scholars from other religions always converting to Islam. And you find that the Muslim scholars always being the best in their practice, in their deen, and the way they do things, the best. That's just the way it is. So you won't find the Muslims leaving Islam, right? Because they have knowledge of Allah. They have knowledge. They read the Quran. They understand it. They internalize it. They have knowledge. Now, let's go down. This is sometimes Iblis made people assume that Allah's attributes are similar to those of humans. Okay, like the anthropomorphism. And this is what the Christians kind of done, right? Where God became flesh. According to them, God became flesh. And why? If you ask the Christian why, well, to really understand the love for his creation, he had to become one of his creation and blah, blah, blah. A bunch of nonsense, a bunch of rubbish, right? Just explanations. There's no evidence. They love to have explanation. But God doesn't need to. He's the one who created you. Why does he need to feel? He knows those feelings because he created those feelings. He is the one who is in need of nothing to understand. He knows everything. He is Al-Alim. So when you know his asma wa sifat, his attributes, you know Allah. You know Allah. That's why the beautiful hadith that whoever knows the 99 names, attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, understands them, who takes care of them, he will enter Jannah. Right? He will enter Jannah. Yeah. So others, Iblis, Iblis deceived people from engaging and following a madhab in such a way that basically they fight over all kinds of things that they don't understand. I am a Shafi, I am a Hanbali, I am a Salafi, I am a this and that. They start cursing each other. Imagine there used to be a time, not to mention, of course, the Shia and all the other people, right? Right? But of course, we understand as students all these things. So at one point in the Khilafah, I think the Ottomans were the ones to solve this issue, and you'll see it when you go to Mecca. No, sorry, to Medina. You'll see it better in Medina. Yeah, in Medina you'll see it. In Mecca you won't see it. You see the Medina that they used to have the minbar. They used to have 4 or 3 different members. I remember correctly, maybe 4 members, and it was for the different madhabs. Each madhab would have one minbar. They'll have different Jum'as for each madhab, where the people would go to Medina because of the difference of madhabs. And people were so strict that they wouldn't pray together. The Shafi'is would pray together, Hanbalis together, the Hanafis together, and so on. So the Ottomans, they said, okay, let's just make 4 different members and everyone's got their own khutbah, because they didn't want to pray behind each other. At some point, there was some fatwas where I think if you're from a different madhab, you could not marry. Like you could marry Ahl Kitab, people of the book, but you were not allowed to marry someone from a different madhab. There's some fatwas like that. Yeah, and it became very extreme. People would even fight. And yeah, people do some weird things. Poetry, cursing each other, you name it. There's plenty of wars that happen because such a things. Not to mention the civil wars that we studied in defense against disaster between the Muslims. Who do you think, and he got into this? The shaitan, who confused the people, even though they're good people and people who loved Allah and His Messenger. But in the end, shaitan confused them. Right? The people of the Balk and those of Basra fought extensively over such matters throughout the years. Some were killed, and the wealth of some was burned, while others partook in these fights that were silk and gold during liquor and commit murder. Abu Bakr and Ali are free from such people. So imagine they used to fight about Abu Bakr and Ali, right? Some were on the Sunnah, some were Shia. Some claim that they have allegiance to Abu Bakr, some claim their allegiance to Ali. They killed each other. Okay? So Iblis convinced them all kinds of things, all kinds of deceptions, to the point of murder. By the way, the differences that we have today are very minute compared to some of the differences that were there back in the days. Like back in the history of Islam, you have to understand, again, it's not a clean history in certain things. You have to understand that. And the more we learn our history, that we understand it, the better we can handle it and deal with it, as opposed to non-Muslims trying to confuse us and tell us about it. We need to understand. That's why we study these books. That's why we go through these things. That when we do da'wah, when we engaged, when some Christian might pull something from our history, we will say, yeah, that was human beings. That's not from Islam. That's a deception of shaitan. That's like saying Christianity is based on the Crusades. Give the right cheek or the other cheek, right? And then boom, and you get your cheek burned. right? So it's not like that, right? So we're always ready to have the correct argument to deal with those people who might try to confuse us or attack our deen and our dawah. Okay, very important. Now, let's go down. And if a Christian defeats a Muslim, some lay people say the cross has become victorious. Why should we perform salah? Indeed, this is huge. How does this work today? I'll tell you how it works today. It works today in an interesting way, Matt. It's the YouTube debates and videos. How many people get confused because, well, oh, this guy, he lost the debate, therefore Christianity is right. Because the da'i lost the debate. Come on, man. This is the da'i's fault. It's not the Islam's fault. So people equate the belief that, okay, the Christian won, therefore Christianity won. The Muslim lost, therefore Islam lost. No, you're an idiot. Okay, it's the Muslim who lost, not Islam. And it's the Christian who won, not Christianity, because maybe his arguments are better. Okay. So Iblis takes possession of their minds and causes them to be misled. I know people have left Islam because they watched some debates and they got waswasa and weird thoughts and out. SubhanAllah. No, let's go down. Okay, devil's deception of lay people regarding al-fatwa, the fatawas. Some people think too highly of themselves, so they stop caring about going against jurists. Okay, whenever their fatwas go against their personal opinions, they criticize them. Ibn Aqil used to say, if I were to interfere in the work of a craftsman, he would tell me, you are a scholar, may Allah bless your knowledge. This craft is not your specialty. This is in spite of the fact that the craft is a form of physical work that is easy for me to learn. On the other hand, right, people are going to tell the scholars, hey man, this is not the fatwa, I'm not going to accept it. If anyone gives a fatwa, I'm not going to accept it. Like, you're just a lay person. You don't know what a fatwa and how it's done. So just like you tell someone, don't get involved in my craft, then okay, don't get involved in the fatwa. You don't know how to even read Arabic properly or how to read Al-Fatiha. Okay, so how come you will now give people, oh, this is the correct opinion, this and that, and blah, blah. No, it doesn't work like that. So Shaitan played with them. How many people actually follow scholars today? Very few. They don't really listen to the fatwas of the scholars. Now, depends also, of course, some things are evident today of how some scholars have gone. Definitely. So there's a lot of skepticism amongst people. But yani, still, in the end, not everyone has the tools to make a fatwa. Now, let's go down. There was a section of lay people to think that aesthetic matters are of high class than scholars. Meaning, people see, for example, poor clothes on someone, they kind of humble themselves to them, thinking that, oh my God, these people are so pious and blah, blah, blah. Then they see a scholar maybe dress well, they'll say, oh my God, this person is using the money and is in the worldly gain and blah, 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 and all that, right? So, they're claiming to go beyond the Sharia of the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ was dressed well, he was clean, he didn't have to be in some filthy rags. Yet we see Umar Khattab radiallahu, who was an ascetic, but he was the best of ascetics and of people because his practice, his amana, his yaqeen, his life was just amazing. I mean, right? Again, how did he follow Allah and his messenger? That is the question. Now, let's go down. The devil's deception of lay people causing them to attack scholars. The rise of the lay people. The rise of the lay people. With media today, it's easy for everyone to give an opinion. And something interesting, like I became Muslim 20 years now ago. And I followed a certain trend. At the beginning, a lot of these famous scholars today, da'is, let's not say scholars, da'is, who you know by name, who are very popular, they were at the beginning of their career 20 years ago. Famous names that you know, that you see their videos, mostly they are the ones who are the most popular. And at that time, these, believe it or not, subhanAllah, honestly, they were considered extremists, very strict. The people were not really taking care or listening to these so-called graduates from Medina University, fresh graduates coming back to the West, giving dawah, starting some institutes, you know, they're coming, giving lectures. And they were considered, to an extent, extreme. People would warn against. I remember even in our community, the first time they did some seminars on the weekends, they were basically warned against. They're extreme. So people are talking, oh my God, they're so strict. They want people Quran Sunnah, Salafiyah, this and that. Then with time, with social media, people start getting very attached to them. They start having a lot of followers. People start having teams and people start giving opinions. The lay people started giving opinions within these teams. And interesting enough, yeah, slowly things started changing. I remember exactly. I was in the UAE and I came back to Canada and there was a class that took place from these same institute that's still around today, this institute. And this class was done by one of their ex-graduates from Medina, who's now a very famous da'i, very popular. And I remember some of the guys were confused and they're talking to me and said, bro, what's going on? You know, we attended this class and all of a sudden this is not the correct opinion. And all of a sudden we don't have to do this. We grew up knowing that you shouldn't be, for example, doing this, shouldn't be doing that. You know, now they're saying, well, you know, you can take this opinion, you can take whichever opinion you want. You can do this, you can do that. We're confused. Here we are confused. And I said, there will come a time where it will be the lay people dictating the direction of these scholars, of these guys. It'll be demand supply Islam. And that's one of our local sheikhs also said that it's becoming demand supply Islam, meaning the public is demanding something and the guys are gonna find some way, some fatwas. Kind of like how it used to be the imams of the sultans. The sultan would make a decision and then the imam would have to find the evidence to justify their decision, as opposed to that the sultan should make his decision, his opinion, after consulting the scholar. And that way, where it's like, is it haram or halal? Okay, then I'll make my decision based on the permissibility or impermissibility. But right now, it's like, no, first I'll make the decision, then I'll have some scholars or a group of scholars next to me to somehow justify, and I'll pay them well. And somehow they will justify my my opinion. That's kind of how it's become. That's kind of how it's become. Okay, subhanAllah. So this is the lay people, and they criticize the scholars, and they will say they'll attack the scholars, and the scholars better submit to them. If not, well, guess what? You get canceled. Right? You'll get canceled. You won't have followers. You probably won't get paid. You won't have paycheck. You are going to most likely suffer. Your family will suffer. Gonna have to beg again. Right? Fundraising. It's tough for a guy today because some guys, alhamdulillah, they have you know, they have a career. They're educated, mashallah. They don't need to do dawah. They can work in their field of education and make money, make a salary. They're sacrificing their time and their family for people so people can understand, to fight all the innovations of the time. Yet people are not supporting them. They only support them if these so-called scholars are going to justify their situation. You know what I mean? It's going to justify the situation. No. So they attack the scholars. No. But the people of Jahl, or Jahil, they're not to be obeyed. They're not to be, right? Just because you're an engineer or a doctor doesn't mean you understand Islam properly. Sadly, in the West, most of the decisions of the board of a masjid, here we have masjid boards. I think in Malaysia you have it as well. In communities, the Surau, board of the Surau, a lot of them are not qualified. They're just lay people. Even if they're doctors, engineers, don't get upset. It's in Islam, you're a lay person. You are what's called awam. You're not a alim. You're just an abid, right? So you cannot speak without knowledge. No. Let's go down. No. And the same kind of thing applies in subhanAllah when it comes to the prophets and following Islam. Like Allah has sent the messengers explaining to us the revelations, right? So the same way that the lay people don't listen to scholars, sometimes the scholars, they're not going to follow the evidence that the Prophet ﷺ brought. It's kind of weird, right? Kind of weird. The Prophet ﷺ came with evidence, so the scholars have to use that evidence to show and to explain the correct opinion, right? To explain the correct opinion. That's how it has to be done. So the scholars are also responsible to take from the prophets. Right? They themselves are lay compared to the prophets. Now, let's go down. Glorifying yourselves. Of course, this is something that people, when they see someone who's very humble and pious, people glorify. However, I think today, when someone is too pious and too humble, a lot of people look at them as like losers. I think people today, they glorify success and money. If you're successful and you have money, then you're glorified. You're someone, mashallah, right? If not, then you're basically can be a loser. If someone like Mark Zuckerberg comes, right, and has, let's say he does like a show or something, a lecture, that place will be packed. People pack that place, isn't it? But if anyone else does this, some sheikh, and he was not so famous, very few people come, even though he might be talking about Allah and His Messenger, what you can do to get to Jannah, and so on and so forth, right? But he looks like miskin, normal guy, so people are not gonna, flood his lecture. But if someone like Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos comes and says, I'll give you some advice on how to make money, here, 10,000 ringgits per ticket, people will come like crazy, right? So I think today it's like we put more value towards definitely towards people who are cool, who have money, who are successful from a dunya perspective, as opposed to humble and pious people. Let's say. I think so. I really, really believe that's just how it is. So yeah, this can cause problems. But back in the days, I think they used to really appreciate and consider the ulama of tasawwuf as real ulama, or the good ulama. anything like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of how it used to be. That's what we see. Now let's go down. Committing sins excessively. Iblis entices lay people to dwell into sins. When they get reprimanded, they say things that Zindiqis say. For example, they say, I'll not abandon immediate pleasure for future pleasure. This is because of their ignorance. That would just be like if a person suffering from fever is asked to eat honey, he responds, fulfilling my immediate desire to eat honey is more important to me than my hope for a cure. Right? So, of course, people get enticed into sin and they get engulfed in the sin, and it's very, very hard to get away from it and justifying it. And at least if a person is in sin, they should just admit that they are in sin and should just not try to call it something different. They should just recognize that this is the way it is. It's a sin. It's evil. I'm not going to call it something different. Right? It is bad. It is evil. I'm not going to call it something different. No. Right? This is what I believe. It's important for us as Muslims to be careful. Now, so zina, haram, you name it, all kinds of bad things, all kinds of weird things. People justify or find a way. No matter what happens, guys, in your life, never justify your sin. Just it's a sin. It's haram. May Allah forgive us. Astaghfirullah. A'udhu billah. Don't change the Sharia. Don't change the Aqidah. Don't change. Right? If you yourself are weak and cannot listen and cannot follow, then don't change. Don't try to justify. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a perfect lesson. Adam and Eve, they did not justify, they repented, they realized they knew they were wrong. Iblis was trying to justify, I'm better than him. How come you created me better? Why am I supposed to bow down to him? Rationalization, explanation. No, no such thing. You have to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, let's go down. Farazadaq asked those around him, if I were to do something wrong towards my parents, would they throw me in the blazing oven? They said no. They would have mercy. And he said, I trust my Lord's mercy more than I trust theirs. He says, this is utter ignorance. Had he been tender-hearted, no bird would be slaughtered, no child would die, and no one would enter the hellfire. Of course, Allah is merciful. But Allah is not, like that, where he just, we hope and pray that Allah will forgive us, no doubt about it. And indeed, Allah is more merciful to us than our own parents. That is true. That is actually, correct. Yani, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has more mercy than our parents. And there is yani, hadith. And this hadith is Rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is hadith in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Umar al-Khattab reported some prisoner of war brought to the Prophet ﷺ, and a nursing woman was among them. Whenever she found the child amongst the prisoners, she would take it to her chest and nurse it. The Prophet said to us, do you think this woman would throw her child into the fire? We said, no, not if she was able to stop it. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is more merciful to servant than his mother is to her child. So if you compare this hadith with what he said, is correct, but not to make it as an excuse to sin, right? Of course, to have mercy and to have hope. To have mercy and to have hope. And by the way, this hadith is the highest reliability. Muttafaqun alayh. Agreed upon. So, sometimes we find some scholars, leaning more towards the strict part as opposed towards hope. But then sometimes you find people who try to justify their sins by relying on Allah's mercy. Yeah, I'll be forgiven anyway. Yeah, we hope to be forgiven, no doubt. But don't think that khalas, Allah doesn't punish. But indeed, the mercy of Allah is to be trusted more than the mercy of the parents or of a mother. 100%, that is correct. And we should always think that way. I am as my servant thinks of me. أنا عند ظن عبدي بي. إذا ظن بخير فله. If he thinks good of me, it's for him. وإذا ظن بشر فله. Okay? Very important. Very, very, very important. No. No. Let's go down. Al-Asma'i said, I was with Abu Nawas near the Kaaba when he saw a beardless boy touching the black stone. Again, beardless boy seems to be an obsession of the Arabs, subhanAllah. Abu Nawas said, I'm going to kiss him near the black stone. Look at that, the gayness in them, subhanAllah. Again, it seems that that was something very, very prominent in the old Arabs, this homosexual tendencies. Astaghfirullah. He says, I replied, fear Allah. You are in a sacred city near the sacred house. He insisted and went and kissed the boy near the black stone. I said, do you do such a thing in the haram? He replied, leave these issue alone. My Rabb is merciful. Then he said in poetry, two lovers had their cheeks wrapped around one another next to the black stone. They gained satisfaction without sinning, as if they had an appointment with each other. A'udhu billah. Justifying his sin, right? So, interesting how he's doing tawaf, yani. He's in the haram, and he is, astaghfirullah, and going for young boys. A'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Now, go down. Look how he considers Allah mercy, but didn't consider Allah's wrath. Now, in this case, would you say that Allah is going to be merciful to him? It's because of his attitude, yani. A'udhu billah, may Allah protect from such attitude and such behavior of Qawm Lut. Yani. Does he not know the story of Qawm Lut? Does he not know the story of Qawm Lut? A'udhu billah. Go down. The scholar and layperson are equally obliged to follow the Sharia. Okay, equally. If a scholar commits a sin, it's not to be an excuse for lay people to commit the same sin. Right? Sometimes people say, oh, they find like a scandal, the scholars in a scandal. They make it now an excuse to go and to basically say, well, if he committed a sin as a scholar, then khalas, I'm going to commit a sin, right? If he committed the sin, khalas, I'm going to commit a sin. No, this is totally wrong. Just because he committed a sin does not mean now that you should be committing a sin. This is messed up. So, but people find this excuse and they use this excuse to justify. They're almost waiting for some scholar to mess up and they'll be like, well, if he did it, then, I'm going to do it too. And this is totally, totally messed up. Okay? Totally messed up. Everyone is responsible. Scholar, guy, anyone. We're all responsible for our sins. Okay, no one is going to be questioned, because he did this. Of course, people can guide and misguide. And keep people, like, let's say if I am misguiding people, I'll carry that. But in the end, it is your responsibility to take. It is your responsibility to take. My responsibility is mine. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Also, ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى. No one will bear the burden of another person. No one. Okay, no one is going to bear it. You're going to have to bear your own thing. Now, let's go down. Okay. one of the things is now the status of a person. And here it's an issue where we can look at the Shias and Sunnis. The Shias, they believe because they are um, well, Sayyids, some of them, right? They're Sayyids, that somehow this, and it suffices them to basically save them, because I'm Sayyid. And the Sunnah, some people have the same thought. Oh, I'm from Sayyid, I'm from Yemen, from a Sayyid family. I only marry Sayyids. I will not marry any Malay. I'll not marry a Malaysian who is not from Yemen background or mixed. We have that in Malaysia. We are Sayyids and they are not. So I cannot allow my daughter to marry a non-Sayyid. We're different, we're better. Because of our status, we are saved. Because of who we are, we are like this. This is wrong. Same with the Shia. And anyone else who claims that because of his status, that somehow Allah and he's going to look at him differently. Allah will only look at you based on what you've put in, the work that you've put in, the amount of struggle that you've had and you've put in. That's it. That's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to look at you. He's going to, look at what you're doing and so on and so forth. That's it. Now, so keep that in mind. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what status you have. It's what you have done. What have you done? No. So it's not, he says, Ibn Aqil says, who am I for Allah to punish me? If all humans were to die except for you, then Allah is saying, oh people, would apply to you, right? So it doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses everyone. Ya ayyuhan nas, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ya ayyuhan nas. It's to everyone. Okay, it's to everyone. Now, go down. Others will say, I'll repent and I'll rectify myself. How many foolish, negligent people were kidnapped by death before seeking repentance? It is not of good discipline for a person to delay doing tawbah. Even if you're making something wrong, always make istighfar. Don't wait. Astaghfirullah, tawbah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Every time, istighfar, istighfar. The Prophet said he makes istighfar and tawbah 70 to 100 times per day. Always make istighfar. Even if you're doing something, or even if you're, whatever it is, always make istighfar. Always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his forgiveness. Always, always. Never rely upon, just, okay, something will happen. It'll be fine. I'll do this. No, it's khalas. And you have to continuously and always make istighfar. Okay, it's very important. Istighfar, istighfar, istighfar. Non-stop istighfar. It's important to always do istighfar. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. A beautiful, beautiful statement. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Always asking Allah for forgiveness. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh. Remember this. There's a difference to istighfar and tawbah. Tawbah has more conditions. Istighfar is really just saying it and feeling it, of course, but basically saying it. Right? Make your tongue moist istighfar. Try to keep doing istighfar. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. Allahumma gfirli. Maghfirah. Ask for maghfirah. Beautiful dua we can make. Subhanallah, look at this. Authentic. The Prophet ﷺ told us that if you ask for forgiveness for you and for the believing men and women, those who are alive and those who have passed away, you get hasana for each and every one of them. Meaning all the believers who are alive right now, and how many generations have passed. So say it right now. Allahumma gfirli wal muslimina wal muslimat. Oh Allah, forgive me and Muslims, men and women. Al-mu'minina wal-mu'minat, the believers, men and women. Al-ahya'u minhum wal-amwat, those who are alive from them and those who have passed away. Allahumma ameen. We ask Allah to accept that. Ameen, ameen. Believe that now that you said this dua, you got billions of hasanat. Billions. Billions. Imagine there's 2 point something billion Muslim alive today. And from today till the beginning of Islam, till the first Muslim, the first revelation, all the Muslims, you've gotten a hasana for them. And every good deed erases a bad deed. SubhanAllah. You have to believe in this. It's not, if you don't believe in it, then forget it. You have to believe in this. You have to believe. اللهم اغفر لي والمسلمين والمسلمات المؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. You have to believe in this. Please believe in it. Yeah. All right, let's go down. Al-Hasan said, if the devil finds you to be a sinner, he'll announce your demise. And if he finds you to be obedient to Allah, he will become fed up with you and reject you. And if he finds you fluctuating between obedience and sin, which is most people, then he becomes eager to deceive you. No doubt. Most people are fluctuating between obedience and disobedience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Now, let's stop here. The devil's deception of lay people regarding section 13.2, their lineage. SubhanAllah. Okay? Now. Okay. So, for instance, please write the last Tawbah. Okay. So let me see if I can find it for you in Arabic. 1 second. I think I found it. Bismillah. Let me see here. Just give me a second. Bismillah. Yeah, so من استغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات كتب الله له بكل مؤمن ومؤمنة حسنة. Okay, so whoever actually does this, then you'll get a reward for everyone who he has made tawbah, istighfar to. نعم, so the dua is من استغفر المؤمن والمؤمنة كتب الله له بكل مؤمن ومؤمنة حسنة. Now, this is At-Tabarani has narrated this hadith. Okay, so it is an authentic hadith. Ibn Hibban and others have authenticated. So again, the dua is Allahumma kfirli wal muslimina wal muslimat. Okay. Wal mu'minina wal mu'minat. Al ahya'u minhum wal amwat. And this actually dua comes also in the Quran in a different form. رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيَّ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْحِسَابِ. Right? This is also one of the نعم. استغفر لذنبك وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also tells us this in Surah Muhammad, in Surah Nuh, and in Surah Ibrahim. Okay? But basically, yeah, so again, you say Allahumma gfirli, or Allah forgive me. Okay. Allahumma gfirli lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Allahumma gfirli lil mu'minina wal mu'minat. Let me see if I can send it. Don't have the whole thing right now. Don't know why. Bismillah. Okay. If anyone finds it, because I don't have access to my other phone to write in Arabic for some reason. On this one, I cannot write in Arabic. My screen, I changed my screen. I cannot, but here. Right, so Allahumma gfirli. اللهم اغفر لي للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات. نعم. Okay, بارك الله فيكم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.